Today we're talking about a quiet crisis that affects believers everywhere. That crisis is isolation. See, in a world and society that prides itself on independence and keeping us busy, many of us find ourselves, even when we're surrounded by people, to feel utterly alone. This is especially detrimental in our faith journey. This is why so many of us are hiding our struggles and struggling to fight our battles in secret. But today we're going to focus on why it's important that we come together in Christian fellowship. So we're going to call this podcast Sharpened, How Iron Sharpens Iron. Welcome back to Biblical Blueprint, the podcast dedicated to turning biblical truth into a practical reality. If you're looking for a clear path to building a life that truly lasts, you're in the right place. Get ready to start building. Let's lay that foundation. All right, so the Bible was clear. We're not meant to walk this path, this Christian path, this Christian experience alone. The strength and resilience God designed for us to have is found in genuine, spirit-led community. So today we're going to use the principle of iron sharpening iron to create a simple blueprint for building deep, accountable fellowship that protects us from isolation and sin. So I want to explore this further by first asking a couple questions. Why do we need each other? Or why is connection a non-negotiable? I would offer that solitude feeds temptation, but community, it fosters strength. It gives us that strength that we need. See, think back to God's original design. He said in Genesis 2:18 that it's not good that man should be alone. This principle still applies to us today. See, the enemy thrives in the shadows, and when we isolate, we become vulnerable to discouragement, doubt, and subtle sins. Hebrews 10:24 and 25 tells us that we should not forsake the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but we should exhort one another as we see that day approaching. See, this lets us know that fellowship is not a suggestion. It's a divine safeguard for our faith. So now let's lean in a little closer. Let's explore 4 principles, foundational principles for this blueprint. First principle is a shared vision, or a common ground, or a common perspective. See, true biblical fellowship is not just about having common interests with somebody. It's not just that, we both like dance, or we both like football, both like basketball, we both like shopping. It's deeper than that. It's really about having a common direction and a joint ultimate goal. See, we must both agree on the destination, which should be, as Christians, glorifying Christ and actively pursuing sanctification. See, if you're building a relationship with someone whose primary focus is worldly achievement, while your goal is spiritual maturity, your paths will eventually split. Similarly, if you're building a relationship with someone whose primary focus is live life now, the YOLO concept, you only live once, while somebody else is saying, no, I'm living to live again in eternity. Again, your interests, your focus, your paths will eventually split. You can't walk together. Amos 3:3 asks the question, can two walk together unless they agree? See, we must seek out believers who share our blueprint for life, to live intentionally for God's kingdom. Now, this second principle requires courage, as the second principle is authentic vulnerability. We have to set down the shield of protection, that idea that we want to shield and protect ourselves and only present a perfect image, and get more vulnerable and honest and authentic with one another. We have to move past that mask of perfection and share the real deal, that messy parts of our journey, the challenges in our lives, the struggles, the temptations, and those private doubts. The times when we are not living by our faith only. See, only this kind of deep sharing builds the genuine trust that truly lasts. See, when we share our weaknesses, we acknowledge our reliance on God and our needs for one another. James 5:16 tells us to confess our sins to each other and pray for each other that we may be healed. See, vulnerability is not just a showing of your weaknesses. It's the power source for healing and the necessary steps towards deep connection. Our third principle is courageous accountability. This is the iron and sharpen iron in action. See, it means loving someone enough to speak truth to them even when it's uncomfortable, and having the humility, likewise, to receive that truth when it's directed back at you. See, the world sees accountability as judgment, but it's not. See, accountability is a commitment to seeing the best in the other person and refusing to let them drift into destructive habits. Proverbs 27:17 says that iron sharpens iron, and as one person sharpens another. See, when we need people in our lives to challenge our blind spots and to relentlessly encourage our growth towards Christ-likeness. See, because we have a shared vision or a similar path, and we've also deepened our trust, now we can accept and give accountability to one another in Christian fellowship. Now, our fourth and final principle is unwavering loyalty and support. This is the consistent, sacrificial love that forms the protective walls for our godly fellowship. It's about being present through the deep trials, through the devastating failures, and through the glorious successes. See, when adversity hits in our lives, the illness that we get that we did not expect, we lose our jobs, we experience spiritual warfare, we need people who will stand firm beside us. It's this people that also, they don't just offer advice, but they also offer practical help and prayerful presence. See, Proverbs 17:17 tells us that a friend loves at all times, but a brother is born through adversity. See, we have to commit in our relationships to be dependable for one another, to be the person and the people that show up for one another, the people that will pray consistently for one another, and the people that will be steadfast, unmovable, also abiding in the word of truth. See, unconditional Christian love builds a secure shelter for the many storms of life. So I can see the comments now. I can imagine the DMs coming in. People are going to ask and say, hey, how do you build or establish this godly Christian fellowship that you describe? How do you go about doing that from a practical sense? And so because of that, I wanted to provide some practical steps towards establishing that godly Christian fellowship. So let's get right into it. First, I would suggest that you be intentional. So you can't wait for godly Christian fellowship to fall into your lap, or it doesn't just magically happen. It requires intentionality on your part. I would suggest you identify one or two believers that you trust and ask them to commit to regular check-ins. This can be weekly or bi-weekly. And I will offer you to put this on your calendar, to be intentional. This helps you overcome that trap of busyness, right? Second, I would suggest that you be the initiator. Be the initiator of the vulnerability. Don't wait for them to open up. Share a struggle, confess a worry, or admit where you need prayer. So your courage gives them to do the same thing. A quick equation is that vulnerability begets or equals vulnerability. So there you have it, a strong biblical blueprint for us to sharpen one another through godly Christian fellowship. It's important that we do not allow isolation to steal our joy or to weaken our faith. Remember, God designed you for connection. He designed you for community. So this week, I want you to go out there. I want you to be intentional, be vulnerable, and start building those godly fellowships that will ultimately strengthen your soul and sustain you for the long Christian journey. Please hop down in the comments below. I want you to share how this video impacted you. But more importantly, or more specifically, I want you to share which aspect of this blueprint do you find to be most helpful, but also the one that you will see to be most challenging for you. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, God bless, and always bless God.